In this section, we're going to create a test bed, a proof of concept for us to be able to play around with the mechanics that we want our game to have. This isn't a finalized environment, and it's meant to be created quickly so that we can make sure that everything works well as correctly for what we want the game to have. Now, over the course of this section, we're going to first create our test bed level, and then we're going to learn how to remove the combat parts of UFPS for this particular project. Lastly, we're going to learn how we can customize Unity's layout so that you can work the way that you like. Now, before we actually create our own test bed, I first want to talk a little bit about prefabs. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and load up the Sky City map, which you can find on the project window from Assets, UFPS, Base, Content, Levels, Sky City, and also if you just type in at the top Sky City, you'll see it here as well. So we can double click and open it, and here we are. Now, I want you to notice from the hierarchy tab here, we have a series of names that are in blue as well as in black. Now, the black objects are regular game objects and things that we've seen before. They're objects that exist just in the scene, stuff that's just made for this particular level. But this stuff in blue is what we call a prefab, like for instance, these shotgun shells. And a prefab or a prefabricated object is a type of game object that we intend to be reused. These objects will exist inside of the project view, and we can insert these prefabs into any scenes multiple times a scene. And what happens is we create this template from which we'll build a bunch of other ones of these before. For those of you that are already familiar with scripting, it's the same as creating an instance of your class. Now we can see where this prefab was created by right-clicking on the object and then selecting Select Prefab. And you'll see here, it exists inside of the UFPS Base Content Prefabs folder. And there's a large number of prefabs that already exist. And that's one of the advantages of using UFPS, is you have all of this stuff already created for you. Now, one of the nice things about working with a prefab is the fact that if you change something on the prefab object, all of the instances of it will change or will be modified to it. But if I just were to take this one and modify a property, it would only do it on this particular object. And that's the whole point of the prefab system. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start creating our test bed. So I'm going to go ahead and open up another level from UFPS called the clean scene. And the clean scene is, when we open it, no need to save, we're brought to this blank canvas area. And this object just is a terrain. It's got 2 floors, and it's got a very simple camera and controller. If we play the game, we'll drop down, we can look around, we can walk. But even though this works, there's still a number of issues with it. For right now, it's very simplistic. We can't hear sounds. The jump isn't too terribly far. And we could add each of these features in by ourselves, but I might want to use that Sky City player instead of this one. But when we work with a framework like UFPS, we want to keep everything that was created for it the way that it was originally so that we can refer to it later. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and save this level, but we're going to use File, Save Scene As. And so when I do this, I'm going to go into the My Game folder, and then go into Scenes, and then I'm going to call this Adventure Testbed. Now we don't have to worry about our problems so much because the original level is saved. Now I'm going to go ahead and select this camera and controller, and I'm going to delete it so that we're just stuck with this blank world. But then I'm going to use that that character from Sky City. And that character is located in the UFPS base content prefabs folder under players. And there's a number of these here. But the one that I'm going to use is Hero HD Weapons. And we can just bring him in by dragging and dropping. And there we go. I'm going to double click on him. And when we play, he's already here. And we can move around. We got a gun, all that fun stuff. But I don't necessarily want to have a gun. But I don't want to modify this original prefab. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this object its own prefab. And this will work the same way as creating a normal prefab. I'm going to go to the project window, and then I'm going to go to prefabs. And so here, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop this guy into here. And now I have my own object. I'm going to give this guy a new name. I'm going to call it Adventure Player. Hit enter. And now this guy is named, but he isn't named necessarily here because we make this change. If we want to rename this character, we can just go ahead and select this and rename it to Adventure Player as well.